Turn your living room into a joyful, hands-free playroom with CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Your child sings, moves, and learns right alongside JJ and friends, all on the big screen. It's designed thoughtfully to spark speech, rhythm, and coordination through songs and active play. Try an ad-free, safe, and interactive way to make screen time part of their learning and growth. Parents love how easy it is, voice-controlled and frustration-free. Kids love every moment of singing, laughing, and playing along. It's fun for them, and it's feel-good for you. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Just search Volley in your TV's app store and start your free trial of CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ today. That's CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Search Volley and start your free trial today.
Volley.
Welcome to Homeschooling Outside the Box, the podcast that encourages and equips moms who homeschool an outside-the-box child. Today, I've got Cindy West with me from Our Journey Westward. Cindy, say hello, please.
Hey there, everybody.
All right. Cindy is a blogger and a speaker, and she also writes a lot of her own curriculum. She is a fellow Charlotte Masoner, and she's got a lot of interesting things to talk about today. So I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself. Cindy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, how long you've been homeschooling?
Yeah, sure. I think I am in my 18th year of homeschooling. So I hit a slight little brick wall a couple years ago, and I thought, oh my goodness, can I do this anymore? But I am now rejuvenated, and I think all of us long timers eventually sort of go through those doldrums. But yeah, 18 years in now and going strong. I feel really good. I have a 22-year-old who is in college. She was homeschooled all the way throughout. I have an 18-year-old who is in college, same story, and I am now only homeschooling one. He is a 12-year-old and sixth grader, and it's kind of nice going back to just being a mom of one homeschool kid.
I bet that's, I've got 4, and so I will hit that stage at some point as well. My oldest their birthday was yesterday, actually, so they just turned 12. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're 12, 10, and then I've got a 5-year-old. So at some point we will be a one child home. That just is so bizarre to me. I've never had one child, so it must be a big change shifting.
It is a huge change. And it was one of those early on where I thought it would never come, and it came fast. So enjoy the days, as hard, as exhausting, sometimes as frustrating as they are. Enjoy every single moment, because it is true. They go by so much faster than you could ever imagine.
Oh, I know. Just yesterday with the boy's birthday, we have a little tradition where we'll pull out the photo album from the year they were born and lay it on the table to kind of, let guests reminisce. And it was, so bittersweet, because you think,
yes,
how did we survive that? But then you're so sad that, that part's over. But these years are really exciting. So, you're excited for the future as well.
That's right.
Okay, so now tell me a little bit. You also are a work from home mom. So tell us a little bit about your work.
I am. I think it was probably 8 or 9 years ago, I started what was called at the time Shining Dawn Books with a friend, and we wrote the Nature Explorers series. Since then, I am now on my own. My sweet partner just decided writing and the business work at home gig wasn't for her. So I switched everything over to Our Journey Westward not too long ago. And I write and I blog as well. And I stay busy. It's a nice outlet for me to have a business that is mostly part-time. that I can homeschool easily around and be home with the kids when they need things or whatever. So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
That's wonderful. Now, were you always a writer? Were you a writer first and then it just made sense to pursue that alongside of homeschool, or is that something that developed out of your homeschooling experience?
It is something that developed. The funniest part is I was an education major. So I have a master's in education. But when you do that, at least in Kentucky, you have to also declare I guess you call it an emphasis. And so my emphasis was the language arts. But writing, I hated those writing classes and I did not want to write for people. But what I learned was that it was because I was being told what to write rather than getting to express what came kind of from my heart. So
Sure.
Yeah, my friend and I, my original partner and I just saw a need in the homeschool community for some nature study curriculum. And we started writing and I soon learned, wow, now that I get to write what I want, I really do like this. So
It's
yeah,
wonderful.
it was kind of born out of
That's
need.
neat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so how did you come to homeschooling? You just said that you had gone to school for education, so I assume your plan was to teach. And then now here you are homeschooling. You said you homeschooled the whole way with your 22-year-old and on. So how did that develop? Was that a part of the plan or?
No, not at all. In fact, at first, as a public school teacher or former public school teacher, because when my daughter was born, I did work for a year and I cried almost every single morning because I wanted to be home with her. And so she got really sick around Christmas, and it was the same day as the Christmas party at school. So as the teacher, I really needed to be at that Christmas party for my students, but my daughter was also running 104 fever. And my husband had to take off work and take care of her. And I came home from school that day and I said, I don't know what it's going to take, but I really, really, really want to at least be home with her for a little while. Once I was home for a little while, that turned into, well, let me just stay home until kindergarten happens. Well, in the meantime, we started meeting some homeschool families through church, and I learned these people aren't at all strange. In fact, their children they're smart, they are sweet, they are servants, they are just great people. And so the next step was, hey, why don't you just let me homeschool kindergarten? Let's see how this goes. And then, what did I say? 18 years in, here we are.
Right. Ours is similar. We never planned to homeschool, and then we just were not happy. My first son was diagnosed with autism when he was 3, and so when we went into the school system, I don't know what we thought. It just wasn't what we thought. I always planned on being Little Miss PTA mom. My mom was always up at the school. We had I went to a small private school, so it was a very tight-knit community, thriving, just great experience. And so that's what I thought. And then just over and over, that did not happen. So right, we were accidental homeschoolers as well. And that was the first charge was, let's just try it for kindergarten. And
yes.
And yep, here we are. So it is, it's addicting. After you get into it, you see, wow, this is a whole world that I didn't even know existed.
Well, and when you realize the opportunities that you are able to afford your children with this lifestyle, it's almost a no-brainer.
Yes.
That, and then, I got to see a lot of what second and third graders knew, and what they did and what they said and how they acted. And I really wanted a different life for my kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So then Charlotte Mason, did you find out about her early on, or was that a later development?
No, I did find out about her early on. I fell into the 5-in-a-row curriculum in kindergarten with Michaela, and it was absolutely wonderful. And that was my first kind of, school doesn't really have to look like what I used to do in the public school system. And around the same time, I got my hands on the book that all the people say they finally got their hands on and turned their lives around, and that is For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay.
Sure.
And that cast a vision for me that really has been, I call it the foundation of our homeschool. I'm not a Charlotte Mason purist at all, but it has been the foundational principles that have guided our homeschool all 18 years.
That's wonderful. And a quick side note for listeners, I will put all of these links in the show notes. So if you're wanting to go back and what was that curriculum she mentioned or what was that book, don't worry about that. I'll put it all in the links. Okay, so you were fortunate to find out about Charlotte Mason and just that idea of education early on. Our story, we definitely tried to do home at school or school at home, and that was disastrous. So it took us a few years, but I'm always intrigued by people who kind of started in that direction. I think, man, what a gift. Which of course we all have to go on our own little journeys to get where we end up.
Oh, yes. And there are mistakes that I've made or things that I've had to learn, when you think, well, I'm going to do it all the Charlotte Mason way. And that doesn't necessarily even work for every child. So yeah, everybody's always, and I think it's a constant learning process too, that what has worked in elementary, by the time you get to middle school, you're changing gears. By the time you get to high school, you're changing gears. It's interesting.
Now, did you find that you kept changing gears with each child, or did you kind of, by your first child, you went through and then your second child, you thought, oh, okay, well, at least I know the approach for middle school, or was there a lot of adjustments from child to child?
That's a great question. Yes and no. So the basic foundational, we are a short lesson, we are living literature, we are a nature study kind of family, that's our foundation. But with each child, it's kind of always gone the same direction, but sometimes different materials or different approaches will have to be pulled in, depending on their needs or their giftedness or their lack of giftedness or, whatever. So it's this constant, we've got our structure, but what we fit into that structure is going to fit each child. And so it's not like a complete overhaul each time, but it is tweaking and keeping mama on her toes because nobody's going to be exactly the same, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, that's a great segue because what I want to tell the listeners is the way I found out about you was listening to a podcast with Pam Barnhill. You were on talking about brain training, and this was years ago.
Probably a couple of years, yeah.
Yes. So we, for anyone who doesn't know, we've got autism, Asperger's, ADHD, dyslexia in our mix. So the idea of brain training, my antenna is always up for things like that. So hearing you talk about brain training, I thought, wow, this is really a neat concept. And we ended up taking a whole summer off with my third child who's got the ADHD and dyslexia and really just poured into him with this. And we saw some great things. And so I know, yes, it was wonderful. And we still keep it. Actually, we're cycling back through around, in the spring or summer with him. So just to see at a higher level what we can kind of get out of it. But I know you had mentioned tweaking things for each child. So that of course leads me to what introduced you to brain training, what made you, put your antenna up about that, what was intriguing. Are there some needs in your home that you found it helped?
Okay. So I have one of my kiddos who for a long time was very, very impulsive, fast at everything he did. His attention wasn't necessarily where it needed to be, his focus, his ability to remember directions. And again, through church, this happened to be another church because we had moved at the time, another mom had said, I am going to attend this brain training session, and I'm doing it because I have a Down syndrome kid, but I think you would really benefit with some of your son's, I don't like to call it ADHD, but many of those symptoms were there.
Attention.
Okay. Yeah,
struggles.
exactly. Attention and impulsivity, which I do want to say, I feel like a lot of kids struggle with, feel like a lot of people struggle with, and it's not always necessarily an ADHD label as much as it is, hey, this is just an active kid who needs some tools to learn how to focus. So, we never even pursued any kind of label. I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing a label, but I don't want to just say that brain training helped us just because there was a label. It can actually help with even wildly gifted kids who want to soar even farther, or people who have had brain damage, who need to build some neurons and things. So anyway, through this, I went to this 1-day seminar, which was a 6-hour day, where we were actually doing brain training. And what brain training is, it works specifically on executive functioning skills, like memory, like attention, like focus, like impulsivity, like logical reasoning, comprehension. Seems like there are even a few others. And it does this through movement and game-like activities that are specifically designed to help the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain build connections with one another. And so that whole day, she showed us exercises that cross the midline. So what the midline is when you put your hand like at your nose, draw a line all the way down to your belly button. That's your midline. And so anytime the right side crosses that midline over to the left or vice versa, you are doing an exercise that crosses the midline. Crawling, climbing trees, those kinds of things are exercises that would do that. There are specific exercises that really work hard on it too, that she showed us that day. And then she played games with us. And by the time we left, we were so exhausted, and it was not because of physical exercise. It was because she was truly giving our brain a workout. And that I'll never forget, she said, that's exactly what your kiddo's brain is going to feel like with intense brain training. And you need to understand that if you're doing brain training for an hour a day, you may not get much more homeschool work or school work if you're sending your kids to school, because they have really done a hard workout. But you'll see results after consistent working these exercises and these games. You will see such growth in the ability to focus and all that kind of stuff that it will be worth it to you that you've backed off of school for a little bit. So did I leave anything out there?
No, and it's funny you say that. I was just thinking, it was recently my son, we were doing some of the exercises, and he looked at me and he just stopped. He looked exhausted and he said, Mama, my brain, it's just, is so tired. I'm like, I know, buddy, because it's working so hard. But, I'm a big advocate, and there's multiple therapy programs that we do in conjunction with the brain training activities. So, I say this to say it's an across-the-board idea where we have many a season traded academics for therapy, in the understanding that if you will focus on these things now in concentration, everything else will come smoothly,
Absolutely.
And not a perfect world way, but you know what I'm saying? It's priming you to be successful. And if you try to just muscle through and do these academic things without the brain being as strong as it could be, it's just going to make it so much harder and more frustrating, and then they're going to hate it. And so we've seen great success with taking a season off and saying, okay, just for summer, we're just doing this. And when you say just doing, it's not like you're not doing anything. I mean, they are working very hard, just in a non-conventional way, I would say.
Right. And it's not just training attention. You are building smarter people because of the ability to focus and comprehend and think logically, and all of that stuff equals better learning. So
For sure.
right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, Charlotte Mason says the sign of an educated person is the habit of attention. And so without that, I mean, what have you got?
Right, exactly. And part of, Charlotte Mason's habit of attention is building habits and training. These brain training games done consistently, that is actually habit training for attention and other things as well. So, it's fitting into lots of areas of just building smart kids.
Right, absolutely. And you think of the games you're doing, they're things that I feel like, and you can tell me what you think, because your kids are older, so you might have seen this happen more drastically. I think it's an epidemic today to have these flighty, unfocused thoughts. It's a lost, I don't know the word, virtue. I don't know the word I'm trying to come up with, but people don't think it's as important as it is anymore. Whereas before, I remember even the games we played naturally would incorporate some of these things. I know one of the games they do is, you look at a window or look at a series of objects and then you turn away from it. And then you write in your notebook how many you remember seeing, sort of taking that mental picture. And I feel like the world, with screens and just everything moving so quickly discounts the importance of that. And then we're not having this depth in our learning. We're not able to pay attention to anything long enough to really comprehend it or think on an idea or meditate on things. And that is a big problem.
Yes. So, and watching those shows and playing those games that have the quick snippets, that's actually training your brain. So you are being trained against focus and attention. Yeah.
It is. And then you're craving that, you're irritated or frustrated. You look at kids today, if Google is 2 seconds behind, it's, why is this computer working? And then we think of the AOL days where you would, click on it and then walk and go get something to eat and come back. And, you had plenty of time before it actually got online.
That's true.
So different world, but so the brain training definitely made a big impact. I think it's just a good practice to be laid into for any child. But I know you mentioned gifted. Do you want to go more into that? I know you've got some products specifically for gifted kids. You've dealt with that some.
Yes. So I have one incredibly academically gifted. I have one incredibly musically talented. And then I have another who is probably more average at this point. And so when I was teaching in the school system, one thing I learned quickly was you always teach to your higher level kids, because the more you expect from children, the more they will rise to that occasion. So I've always kind of had this philosophy of let's just go big with academics. Let's go big with thoughts. Let's go big with, whatever it is. And it's been neat to watch in the school system and then again in my home that kids do rise to that. But as far as brain training is concerned, the brain training was brought into our home specifically for the one who struggled with attention and focus and impulsivity, and it worked wonders. He was the one that spent some intensive time doing the program. But with the other two, the academically gifted and the more average, we still incorporated brain training games. They played the games along with us. They didn't do the intensive training, but I still saw brains wake up in the morning. We ended up taking our morning time, and every single morning time either opened with or ended with at least one or two brain training games. And I would see an immense amount of difference in the ability of each one of those kids to focus, to, it was like I had just woken up their brains through an activity,
Wow.
which I suppose is exactly what it's
Right.
supposed to happen. So, we've carried on that tradition. Even now that I'm only homeschooling one, Eli and I still open up each one of our days with a game or two. And it's just kind of our consistent, when you go and you work out really hard and you finally get to where you want to be with your muscles or your weight, well, you still have to kind of maintain that. I feel like we are on a maintenance schedule, and the other two never even went through the intense stuff because their maintenance was already okay, but we continue this for maintenance. So I don't know if that makes much sense.
It does. And I love that idea of doing it first thing in the morning, almost saying, okay, let's turn on your brains and having, and just describe a couple. I know I mentioned the one game, but when you're talking about games, just so people can visualize what it is that you would be doing first thing in the morning. These are real quick, 5 to 10 minute. A lot of them, are not long activities. Correct.
So much that, and that's kind of the point. Even when you're doing the intensive training, that you are switching between several games because they're each going to work different skills. So you're able to do 5 to 10 minute things that then allow the brain to move into another 5 or 10 minute thing so that there isn't quite as much fatigue. You're not working on the exact same thing over and over. So you're absolutely right. These games are quick. Some of them can even be a minute or two. Like you just mentioned, you put out a little tray of items and you have your child look at that tray of items for a minute and you put it away. This is probably reminiscent to many of you of a game you may have played at a baby shower or a wedding shower. For a prize, right? And so you put that tray away or you cover that tray up and you say, how many things can you remember? I mean, that literally takes you 2 minutes and you have done a really great memory activity. And so there are different types of memory. There's what's called long-term memory. There's short-term memory and there's working memory, which means things that you have to remember while other things are going on. So that particular game would really work well with short-term memory. But then you play a game like the classic memory games where you have pictures on cards and you turn all the cards over. That one is actually short-term memory and working memory. Okay. So those are just very, very simple things you can do. Blink, the card game Blink. It is a fast game that is doing working memory. It's doing focused attention. I don't know if you're familiar. Maybe I should explain the game a little bit. It's got different each card has a specific shape on it in a specific color and a specific number of those shapes. So 1, 2, or 3 items. And there are 4 piles out and you and a partner are competing with one another to lay your cards on the stack, and your card either has to match the color or the number or the shape. And so you're constantly, you're using that focus and that really intense attention. And this is visual attention because we're training visual versus auditory attention. So this one happens to be visual, but you're also doing short-term memory because you have to, and working memory because you have to keep thinking, okay, what am I putting next? How am I going to beat this person? Very quick game, 5 minutes tops. Spot It is another one very similar in what it's working. The game Simon gives you know what I'm talking about, the electronic game where
I do. We bought it when we started brain training. Yes.
Oh, good. So it's got 4 colored buttons, I guess you call them, and each button makes a sound. A specific sound. And so Simon tells you which one to hit. You hit that button. Then it does that one plus another one, that one plus another one, another one. And you have to constantly be using your working memory, your visual attention, your auditory attention, and even your short-term memory to focus on this game and see how far you can get with it. So it's a fabulous one for kind of touching on all different kinds of spots.
Definitely.
And then logical training, which is something that I have done with my kids all the way through and didn't realize that I was training executive functioning skills. But logic games are very, very good for kids.
Now, would you say formal logic would still be, once you get into the older years, would that still be considered a form of brain training?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
What I like to differentiate, you kind of have the logic puzzly kind of things, which can be anything from your matrix puzzles where you have the clues and you're making X's when you learn that certain things don't go together or do go together. And then your formal logic moves into more things like your syllogisms and your if X this, then that kind of thing. And so all of that is logical thinking. Some of them are more game-like, and I guess you could consider the formal logic game-like. It still hurts my brain. So I don't think of it as a game.
Intense. But I think it prepares you, and I was passionate about that. I'm not a math person. My background is in writing, and so when I got to college and found out that I could supplement a logic class for one of my math classes, I was very keen to do that. So I took logic, and oh my goodness, it blew my mind. I loved it. And so I think that the brain training prepares, if you do plan on taking your child into formal logic in the high school years, this is a great primer for that, to get them sort of thinking in that direction. And I know there's younger the fallacy detective, and there's some others that are, formal logic, but simplified, for the younger years. But I think those, it's whether you have a child who needs help with attention or you're just wanting them to think. I mean, who doesn't want to think well,
Exactly. And, you think about what are they telling older people these days? What are they telling Alzheimer's patients?
Yes.
They are saying do games like Sudoku. Yep. Is that how you say that? I don't like Sudoku.
Yes.
Because I'm not a numbers person either. Or crossword puzzles or things that make them use their brain. And they specifically even have these apps these days that are helping to train the various executive functioning skills. And they are helping build those connections even in the elderly and Alzheimer's patients. Right. So of course it makes sense that what we do with our kids is going to strengthen them for higher level thinking.
Sure.
I do have a post on my blog where I put together a little list of kind of the more informal logic stuff that I love and some of the formal stuff, if you want to link to it, just to help people see the difference between what we're talking about.
Definitely. And on that note, I was going to ask, because I printed that. I mean, we use that as a basis to go through which games. You've got the games in different categories, and you mentioned a few of them when you were talking, the visual or the logic or the short term. Now, do you rotate through those, or do you pick? When we were doing it, I wondered, do I stay in this area and we're real mastery focused in our home, we use Matthew C, and we like to really learn a concept, or is it more beneficial to do, one or two activities from visual on Monday, and then on Tuesday jump to the next category and do one or two audio? Okay. How would you say to work through those?
Well, I think it depends on what your goal is. If you are in intense training periods where brain training is the thing.
Yes, let's say it's intense.
Okay, if it's intense, then you need to probably be doing a little bit of each through that hour or so of intense time. Okay. And then tomorrow, the goal is to expand on that. So, for instance, so I have two posts that I can think of at the moment. I have a basic post that is about brain training, kind of explaining these concepts. But then I have one that focuses more on auditory attention and focus and memory and that kind of things, and one that's more on visual. So in the visual one, I'm pretty sure, I have this printable, and it's a little game where there are numbers, or maybe it's letters. I don't remember.
It's letters.
It's letters.
The P's, the B's, and the D's. Yep.
That's right. And so what you're telling your kiddo on day one is, I just want you to go through and I want you to circle all of the B's. And that's all they're doing. They go line from right to left, down the page, circling all the B's. Tomorrow, you will pull out that sheet again, and you'll say, what did you do yesterday? And they'll say, well, I circled all the B's. Okay, today I want you to circle the B's, and I want you to put a triangle around the D's. And so line by line, right to left, left to right, left to right. Do it as you would read a book. You are going through and circling the B's, putting a triangle around the D's. You pull that out again tomorrow, the next day, and you say, what did you do yesterday? And so you're building upon that particular skill. And then maybe even next week you pull out something different where you're having them do a similar type of thing, but it's with different letters or different numbers or something like that. And eventually, when that's not a problem, like they're able to zoom through that one, you can kind of put that one aside and go, all right, we've got this, and just pull it out occasionally. Okay?
Okay. Yes. And I think of, obviously with dyslexia is what comes to mind. Tracking is such a huge problem. Just their eyes. I don't think people understand really the eyes with the muscles and just the physical part of reading. Your eyes being able to track and then sending those messages to the brain to understand what letters that make the words and then to say it all fluently, in a short period. So if you have a child with a specific need where okay, visual is our weakest area, you would say it's okay to go ahead and just hit that first and just stay in visual until they make some progress and then move to something that's maybe not so much of a challenge but still needs work.
Sure. Or you could take the opposite approach and do things that are a little easier and work up to the harder. Honestly, I don't know that there is a specific route that's going to be better than the other. I would watch for frustration levels. If the frustration level is super duper high, back off and start with things that are a little easier, a little more game-like and strengthening the muscles first. The cool thing is most of the time, not most, many times, one activity that you think is, really strong for visual attention or visual processing speed or visual memory is also training other things.
Right. Yeah.
So they're all very interchangeable, and one can do a lot of really good work. Definitely. Even if it's not necessarily your focus for that day. So I do want to switch gears though, and let's talk about maintenance mode in your question of, what would be best. Honestly, that's totally up to you. We tend to, in our home, because we're in maintenance mode, we work through different activities daily. So we're not in a phase of we need to kind of repeat and grow on a certain skill day after day after day. Now, if my son ever, all of a sudden I'm noticing he's not paying attention in his work anymore and he's missing directions and this, that, and the other, then I would probably go through some more intense 2 or 3 games on the same kind of let's get your focus back on. For a time, for a couple of weeks. That would be what we would open with. It still wouldn't be intense. It would just be, these are the games we're going to focus on. And what I do with my kids, especially now that they're older, well, the older two I'm not doing this with anymore, but the older kids, I say, listen, we're doing this game because this is what I've noticed. And I know that this game is going to help you, and this is how it's going to help you. And I explain to them what's going on so that they see the value in it. Not that they don't see the value because, games are games and who doesn't want to play a game most days. But with older kids, we're playing this game, this spot it game, which a 3-year-old could play. We're playing this game because this is what I've noticed, and it's going to help both of us to pay attention better and use our working memory faster and that kind of thing. So this is why we're doing it. Right. And it helps them then transition into their work and go, we had to play Spot It today because.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that goes back to Charlotte Mason's first principle, a child is born a person. I see as the boys get older, when we started therapy with them, they were 3 and 4, and there was really no need to explain what was happening. But as they get older, I find myself it's more beneficial to partner with them and say, hey, you know how you get really frustrated when we're trying to help you do this, and explain why you're doing certain things. And therapy becomes much less something you're doing to them than something you do with them.
Yes.
And I think that's crucial because you're really handing off the torch. If this is a long-term thing or something they're going to struggle with, they need to be in on it and know how frustrating. I can't imagine if you didn't know why your brain was doing these things or why these tasks were so difficult for you. So it really empowers them to then be able to keep this up if that's something they want to do and at least know what's happening.
To know what's happening. And I think what you said with the ownership part, there does come this space in a child's life. And I think it varies the age level for each kiddo where you have to say, this is your struggle in life. I've given you the tools, but now it's up to you whether you're going to continue to live in the struggle or keep working towards something better, because you will grow up and I'm not going to be here to do this with you all the time or to remind you of this anymore. So when the earlier they can take ownership of it, the better. And I think how early you make them do that depends on a lot of factors. Number one, how difficult the situation is. Number two, how capable they are of taking on that ownership, or how critical it is. And I'll give just a quick example. Early on, my daughter was severely allergic to red food coloring. And this is a person that you would never in your life think ever went wild in her life, ever. She was a different child when she was 2, 3, and 4 years old because she was having red food coloring and it turned her into a monster.
Yes.
So at 4 years old, when we figured this out, we had to help her understand this is critical for you.
Yeah.
Versus it was probably 12 or 13 when I was talking about these are your attention issues, sweet son of mine. And this is how you need to help me take control of this with your ownership, right?
Right. Okay. Switching gears real quick, because I keep thinking of Charlotte Mason with the brain training, how naturally a lot of it is just shows up in her philosophy. I'm thinking of things like picture study and narration and all these things that, it's so funny. It seems like, she had a lot of these ideas and now in the modern world, we've kind of, found out some things and given them different names but so many of the philosophies can be tracked back to things that are just naturally.
Think about short lessons.
Yes.
Even nature study and its requirement of observing details.
Yes. And building the habit of attention. That's its goal.
Yeah. So many. And I never even thought about that until I was writing my first post about brain training. And then I went, oh my goodness, I'm going to add narration in here as a link because wow. Oh my goodness. Picture study. Yes. And so, you're right. Almost all of it supports this idea of specific brain training.
Right. That being said, I still see the value of taking a specific time, even when you're in the maintenance period, to play 1 or 2 games to really focus on those areas. But I do love that it's naturally laid into her philosophy. And I know you said you're not a purist per se, but did you find that was a big connection for you where it just was a natural part of your day because of the brain training and sort of your own philosophies really meshed well with that?
Yeah. And just in general, I think both that I gravitated toward both things, not even knowing that they kind of work together because they make so much sense for a good education.
Right. Absolutely. What was the one thing from Charlotte Mason's philosophy that you said that you sort of had to twist or, I don't want to say twist, that sounds malicious in some way, had to adjust to cater to your home? What would you say was kind of a change you had to make based on your kids' needs?
I'm not even sure I'm going to call it my kids' needs as much as it was mine. when I was homeschooling multiple ages and working from home, it was important that I had some streamlined time together. And so that's another thing. Let me go off this tangent for just a second. Morning time was another thing that we just sort of naturally went to before I had ever even heard of morning time, because I could pull in a lot of the what they're now calling truth, beauty, and goodness kind of stuff. And then we would also add in the brain training, just naturally gravitated toward that. And now all of a sudden it's, whoa, everybody.
It's a thing. I know.
Charlotte Mason now. But, unit studies is where I went off what I would consider my biggest place to go off the rails. And that was and I don't really think we did, because we would take and I kind of followed the classical model of history 4-year cycles, science 4-year cycles, just to make sure that we really got in each era of history and each discipline in science.
Right.
And so to make it easier on me, I laid those topics out for a year, and I said, okay, we're going to spend a concentrated amount of time on the study of the human body, for instance. And in order to do that, I am yanking in a bunch of living literature. I am going to go do some real life kind of, we're going to field trip, or we're going to get our hands on things. We're going to, they turned into what are unit studies. And I know that they are unit studies because that's how I taught in my classroom, my public school classroom. But they were Charlotte Mason inspired, where they were meaningful. They were, it's hard to explain.
It's no, I see what you're saying. It's more of a focus. Like, okay, we're going to stop and focus here.
Right.
For a minute.
Rather than the sprinkling of a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit here and a little bit there of 14 different books with 3 different kids, I just said, you know what, we're going to take that whole foundation of Charlotte Mason and we're going to focus this learning. We're going to do it together for the most part. And there were still narrations.
Right.
You know, there was still a lot of the Charlotte Mason stuff.
Sure.
It was just worked more for our family.
Yes, and I think that's the key, is to remember Charlotte Mason taught in a classroom. She was not, and people don't know this sometimes, she was not a homeschooling mother.
Right.
So she, and this was the day of nannies and governesses and, housemaids, and boy, I wish we could go back to that, but we can't. And so we have to adapt it. And that's why I love that it's not a method, this course method, you have to follow stringently. It's philosophies that you can pull into your homeschool. And the more closely you adhere to them, I mean, in my experience, we've had more success the more closely we stick to them. But I do feel like there's freedom for you to adjust to what your family and you, I mean, being the teacher, obviously, that's an important part of that, is that it works for everybody in the family, not just for the kids. So.
Right. And so when you take into account creativity too, there are a lot of us as homeschool moms, we're doing this we're out of the norm kind of people. And so we're probably naturally creative, and to stick to anybody's anything well, even, is hard for us. So, that's what I always encourage people. Find who you are and find your foundation, and then build on that in ways that work for your family, each individual kid, your style. And you're going to be a happier homeschooler because of that.
Absolutely. All right, Cindy, when we wrap up here, I want you to tell me, anything new that you're working on, because I'm definitely going to send people over to ourjourneywestward.com. You've got a lot of great resources on nature study, science, the unit studies you mentioned. So is there anything new you're working on?
I am getting ready to write a new no sweat nature study. I had a large group of people who said, we hate to get outside, or we live in a place that's just really difficult to get outside, or we have health issues and can't get outside much. So my Nature Explorers curriculum, actually there are a lot of things you can do indoors, but I'm crafting these no sweat nature studies specifically for the people who just want to maybe throw it into morning time. And so I'm working on a new one of those. That's really the only thing I'm currently working on. Oh, no, that's not true. I'm working on a new set of 40 science labs, nature study on the go. And those are just printable. They kind of give you your goal out in nature, and then they give your kids kind of a place to note their observations and kind of leads them through a science lab out on the nature walk. So those two things are in progress, but I'm super busy because I'm doing 3 conferences this summer. So I'm preparing workshops for those. And, yeah. And then just trying to continue to promote, the Homeschooling Gifted Kids book, which released a few months ago.
Wonderful. All right. So give us one takeaway. You know, we'll listen to podcasts. I know I do this. People listening are probably doing the dishes or cleaning a kid's bedroom or, you know, and they've listened to all of it and thought, oh, it's so good. But if you could leave them with just one takeaway, one highlighted message, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Can I have 3? No.
Yeah.
I'll try for 1, and maybe I'll put 3 into one big long sentence.
There you go. Give me a run on.
Trust your gut when homeschooling your children over a method or a curriculum style or any curriculum guide. Trust your gut and do what works for your family. That's the first bit of that takeaway. Mm-hmm. And then second, don't be overwhelmed in any of this you've heard, because brain training, for instance, may be a completely new concept, and now you're feeling very overwhelmed because you think, oh my gosh, I don't even understand what this is, and now I'm expected to add this to my schedule. No, you're not. If this is something that resonated with you, do a little bit of research, add a couple things in as you feel comfortable doing that. Every single thing that we do in life is it's learning, it's tweaking, it's becoming better at something that we do. We don't have to feel overwhelmed in there's this big, huge thing that I now have to add. Just do the next right thing. And when you do the next right thing, after lots and lots of doing the next right thing, you turn around and you go, wow, I've made such great progress in our homeschool or in our life or whatever the goal is.
Right. I love that. Did you get all 3 in?
I think so.
I love it. Cindy, thank you so much for taking time to be on this morning. I had so much fun talking to you, and I loved officially meeting the woman behind our success in brain training. We really appreciate it. It was great.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
Absolutely. And where can we find you online? I know I've mentioned your website a couple of times. You blog there, but are you on Instagram or any other social media?
Instagram at Our Journey Westward, Facebook, Our Journey Westward, and Pinterest, I think, at Our Journey Westward. Pinterest is a place where you will just find almost overwhelming ideas that I just like to pin.
Yeah.
So if you are in that overwhelm mode, go find me on Instagram instead, or Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy, for being on.
Thank you.